Artober Learning Labs!
Hi, I'm Margaret Bim.
And I'm Jeannie Nelson.
And I'm Julie Mosley.
2 years ago, the idea to build a permanent exhibit dedicated to the legacy of the 19th Amendment was a small seed. Actually, it started as a light bulb that went off for Jeannie and me during one of our weekly walks. We've been walking together twice a week for 20 years now.
For 2 years, the three of us have partnered with the Nashville Public Library and the Nashville Public Library Foundation to make this little seed of an idea grow into what you are about to see today.
This has been a true community effort. We can't give enough thanks to the donors, supporters, artists, intellectuals, and volunteers who have contributed to this vision.
And we can't thank you enough for being here to celebrate this day. Enjoy.
I have something to say. How many times have these words changed history? 100 years ago, a group of brave women known as suffragists had something to say, and their refusal to be silenced changed our country. Their fight for the right to vote took them across the United States as they worked to get 36 states to ratify the 19th Amendment and make it federal law. By spring of 1920, these determined women had convinced Oklahoma, number 33, West Virginia, number 34, and Washington, number 35. They needed one more vote, and they came to Tennessee to get it. In the summer of 1920, suffragists and anti-suffragists converged on Nashville, each trying to convince Tennessee lawmakers to ratify the amendment or kill it forever. On August 18, 1920, the Tennessee Legislature cast its tie-breaking vote for ratification. Finally, after decades of struggle, the suffragist journey had ended in victory. Nearly a century later, Nashville Public Library has been on a journey of its own to build a space dedicated to the legacy of the 19th Amendment, a space to celebrate the women who changed our nation, a community gathering place for conversations about issues surrounding women and girls, power, and democracy today. Today, we see this space for the first time. Welcome to Votes for Women. Votes for Women is a place to celebrate great stories. There are stories of pioneers who came before us. At Votes for Women, you can read about these achieving women and even hear some of them in their own voices. And there are stories of other women whom history has overlooked until now. After all, that's exactly what makes Nashville Public Library the perfect home for Votes for Women. At the library, all stories are examined, all voices have a place. So here, we won't shy away from the whole story. We'll talk about race and racism in the suffragist movement, about the Black women whose rights were still denied long after the 19th Amendment became law. And we'll talk about the challenges we all face today. We'll talk about race and gender, identity, and voting rights. We'll talk about the issues surrounding women and girls, access to power, and the health of our democracy. There is so much work to do, so many stories to learn from as we honor our past, and so many conversations to have together as we look to the future.
I wonder if a mother's love can be found on the second X chromosome. If God built a womb as a portal from heaven's own, if Eve could have known that womanhood was a power that God never wanted to be revealed. But the forbidden fruit sowed Eden into our DNA. I wonder if Claudette Colvin knew that something as simple as refusing to rise could incite something prophesized in Negro hymns for centuries, if she knew her revolutionary movement would live in the shadow of Rosa Parks' memory. Black womanhood is being asked to bring gifts to parties you were never invited to, It's lighting everyone's candle with the fire alight in you. It's standing in solidarity with women who didn't fight for you because you know what oppression feels like. And I think that God just might love like Black women do. My great-great-grandmother was a slave. She took thoughts of freedom to her unmarked grave. Her daughter stood alongside sisters for rights that would never be hers in a lifetime. Revolution is embedded in my bloodline. She couldn't have dreamed what the next century brought in the law in the hands of Justice Jane Boleyn, the first judge in this country to be a Black woman, changing a future she would never see. Every vote we cast should honor her memory. Cast that ballot like a candle burning with ancestral flame. It's the legacy they fought for. Let them see what became of the children, of the country, of the women who got the chance to have a name. If words are bullets, then your ballot is a semi-automatic. It's the way your voice can shoot through the silence and the static. If the sealing of your lips is far more than systematic, look back at all the mothers who wielded their weapons for you. This holiday is an empty promise if we don't use it to see there's more to our mission. Look at Atlanta's lines, voting booths with locked shut doors by governors with flimsy spines, my people who can't vote for nonviolent crimes committed back in '99. I watched my sister's best friends go to prison. I watched the boys I saw become men, become felons, and lose every right our ancestors fought for. I see pictures of today's suppressed voters in black and white, so people still think this is history. It's not my tomorrow I'm fighting for. It's my daughter's. I'll stand guard at her door as Grandma waded in the waters. Every vote is hope that no more of my blood will lie in unmarked graves. It's the hope that my babies will always be called by their names. Burn your textbooks if they tell you there's nothing more to change. Women, the world has tried to silence our women who know what needs repair. Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat, bring a folding chair. For Black women, this privilege has not been here for 100 years, but when it comes to revolution, ask Eartha, Angela, we have always been the pioneers. The love my great-great-grandmother held for me from past afar was strong because it drew its power from and burned just like the nearest star. From Malala to Asada, from the classroom to the polls, womanhood and the sun's fire reside inside our souls, that through every election in the world we change in kind, the garden in our bodies will find solace in our minds, and the waters that we waded in bring joy in gentler times, that my daughter has the future Eve and every other mother dreams, that Eden will be home again and America will be redeemed.
For the first time in its history, exactly half of the members of the Nashville Metro Council are women. So the history that happened 100 years ago right here in my city is definitely not lost on me. I also know we can't stop here. What I hope people take away from this experience is that we have to vote. We cannot take that right for granted. That's what I love what Votes for Women has done to put voting into such focus. Student groups from across Nashville are going to come to this space, and they're going to use the interactive voting simulator. And they're going to see at a young age what happens when they vote, or when they're blocked from voting, or when they abstain. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be very, very important work that we do right here.
Nashville is a special place for so many reasons, and one of them being our role in the fight for women's enfranchisement and the ratification of the 19th Amendment 100 years ago. which is why I'm thrilled that the Votes for Women project will be at the main library in downtown Nashville. 100 years ago, cities across the United States rang bells to celebrate the ratification of the 19th Amendment. But bells in Nashville remained silent. Now, 100 years later, I'm proud to proclaim today Ring the Bells Day in Nashville and Davidson County. We asked Nashvillians to explore the history of women's suffrage and to think about the causes that they would ring a bell for today. We've seen some incredibly moving testimonials come out of this community campaign.
Gracias, gracias, gracias.
And I'm inspired by the way everyone has embraced this movement in the months leading up to today's celebration.
Here's to strong women.
Their voices demonstrate just how engaged Nashvillians are to the past, present, and future of women's rights and equal rights for everyone. That's why I know the Votes for Women project is going to be a success, because of the people who will bring life to this space to honor the work of those who have come before us and draw inspiration to continue their legacies.
I'm Rosanne Cash, and I am so thrilled to be with you today for the virtual grand opening of Votes for Women. That struggle to secure the vote for women is a story of courage and conviction and persistence and resilience. And it's a story I came to know fully as narrator of the documentary By One Vote. And as a native Tennessean, I am so proud of the role Tennessee played in getting the women the right to vote. I still find inspiration in this story 100 years later. A century ago, a group of people came together. They believed in the justness of their cause, and they believed in the power of their collective voice. And our nation is better for it. Our nation is better every time we speak up for what is right, we use our voice, and we come together with the same commitment that they had for what we believe.
There's a lot of opposition to women's suffrage. You know, we think of women's suffrage as this little bubble that floats around on its own, but it's buffeted by all the political and economic forces alive in America at that time. So you have real organized opposition from certain corporate interests who believe that women's suffrage will be bad for their business. It'll affect the bottom line. So that's everyone from the manufacturers. And you say, what do the manufacturers have to do with suffrage? Well, they feared that if mothers and women could vote, they would want to abolish child labor. And these textile manufacturers mostly rely on child labor because it's cheap. And they rely on cheap sweat labor of women. And they don't want any regulations that are going to impinge on their ability to do that. So they are organizing and paying women to go protest, and they're out there fighting suffrage both at the congressional level and then at the state levels. And they're certainly there in Tennessee. The railroad interests were also against women's suffrage for slightly complex reasons that they had already bought off the legislatures that they needed favors for. And they didn't want to have to buy off new candidates or new legislators who might be voted in by women. And then you have the liquor interests, who are very much opposed to women's suffrage because women had been in the forefront of the temperance movement. And in 1920, in the summer of 1920, when all these events take place, prohibition's already in effect. The Volstead Acts are in effect, and it means that it's happened already. On the other hand, what the liquor industry is hoping is that if they can keep women from voting, then maybe they can make sure that it's not enforced. It's not enforced quite as stringently as it seems to be. And so they're hoping if they can keep women from the polls and elect some what they called wet candidates, both in Congress in the 1920 election and in the states, then maybe it'll be, wink and a nod, and it won't be enforced. And so they're very active keeping women out. Remember, 27 million women would be eligible to vote if the 19th Amendment is ratified, and no one knew how they were going to vote. And so there, you have politicians who are very nervous about this. It's a big block of women, and it's up for grabs.
Hello, Nashville. I'm Emmylou Harris.
I'm Dr. Shauna Jackson.
Chloe Belgart.
I'm Laura Cooper.
I am Katina Beard.
Osio Nagata. I'm Becky Hobbs.
I am here today to talk about a couple of things.
100 years ago, the 19th Amendment was passed, granting women the right to vote.
So women like me can vote, so immigrant women can come and vote.
And cities all over the country rang bells in celebration. However, Nashville did not, because it was so controversial.
So many bled and died for our right to vote, so we can't take voting for granted.
So what Nashville Public Library is asking us to do is to take that moment back.
And today I ring the bell for all of the African American women that have gone before me to make sure that I have the right to vote.
And the important role that Tennessee played into that.
Today and every day, I ring the bell.
Can you hear it?
For an equitable education system.
For my sweet, smart, lovely grandnieces and granddaughter.
For the disenfranchised.
The Girl Scouts of Service Unit 051.
For Joe Hanover, who was a delegate to the special legislative session that gave women the right to vote in 1920.
For not just educators, but for students. And so for all the educators who are having to deal with a very unique year with the pandemic, we ring the bell for that.
I'm ringing a bell for animal rescues, adopting shelter and rescue pets.
Today I ring my bell for Black voices and Black lives.
For fairness and equality in the fight for hunger and poverty.
Domestic violence.
Racial disparities in healthcare.
Access to life-changing education opportunities.
Equal pay for women.
Inequality, systemic racism, political corruptions, and policies that burden our communities.
It's women fighting for women who aren't born yet, knowing they were intrinsically worth being represented and being protected and being valued.
In the great words of Barbara Jordan, my faith in the Constitution is complete, it is whole, it is total.
I ring the bell.
Votes for women.
So much work has gone into today, and there's still so much work to do. But now we take just one more pause, one more sweet moment to celebrate what today represents: inclusion, inspiration, the power of having a voice.
Come and sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you never sung before. Let it fill the air, tell the people everywhere, we the women here don't want a war. Hey there, all you misters, can you hear me? I don't want your diamonds or your game. I just wanna be someone known to you as me. I will bet my life you want the same. Come and sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you never sung before. Let it fill the air, tell the people everywhere, we the women here never wanted a war. No doubt some enjoy doing battle, like presidents, prime ministers, Let's all build them shelves. They can fight among themselves. We the women here just want to sing. Sing with me. Come and sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you've never sung before. Let it fill the air. Tell the people everywhere. We the women here don't want a war. We the women marched and sang and spoke. We the women earned the right to vote. Votes for Women is a place for all voices, for breaking the barriers that still keep women down and breaking down the walls that divide us all. For a month, you've created momentum for today's opening by joining the I Ring the Bell campaign. And you've rung bells for causes you cared about, for the rights of women and girls, for an end to domestic violence, for equal pay. And now is the time to ring those bells one more time. And in fact, churches, universities, institutions all across Nashville are set to ring their bells citywide with us right now. So join me. 1, 2, 3. I'm so happy to declare Votes for Women is open to everyone, and I can't wait to see you there.